We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors, where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wake Up Aligned. I am your host, Dr. Shannon McMurtry, here today with the man in black, Tom Owen. Looks like you got your Johnny Cash attitude on today, Tom.
Yeah, watch out, man. Watch out. You never know what's coming.
I love it. I love it.
Don't walk the line with me, Shannon.
Don't walk the line, yeah. Might shoot a man in Reno just to watch him die. Who knows?
Ooh. Dropping the lyrics.
Hey, we spoke about we just very quickly touched on a subject that you especially are very passionate about, because you see it applied in people's lives and people's practices. So I want to talk more about that today, give you plenty of time to, fully explore it, talk about it from your depth of knowledge without snacks, telling you to hurry up type of thing. And I have a couple of continued honorable mentions I want to share, but I really think this is timely because my understanding is this is happening April the 23rd. This is when this one is released. And last week, a lot of people got caught up in taxes. So this is a good reset of your mind and your mental state and your attitude and all that sort of stuff. So very quickly, before I turn it over to you, I thought I'd shout out to Dr. Amanda Green. Dr. Amanda Green is working with Dr. Tara Horrell. That's her mentor. And she broke through a barrier for the first time ever, and didn't just break through that goal, but went 10% above that goal for the month of March. And what's really special about that is her acceptance ratio, the number of people who are saying, yes, doc, I want your plan, I'll do exactly what you're telling me to do, was very respectable in the mid 80%. That means 8+ out of every 10 new patients through the front door said, yep, I want to do it the way that you're telling me it needs to be done. And she's able to now start investing back into her space, getting it painted, getting some of the diagnostic devices more functional and more user-friendly. And Dr. Amanda is doing it with a great attitude. She's doing it in not real traditional circumstances. There's a unique dynamic happening inside of that clinic that I won't get into. But what I'm really impressed with Dr. Amanda is this. Last year, she stood up in front of her family of chiropractors, AMC aligned, and made a commitment that she's going to do what's instructed of her, even if it scares her to death. And by golly, she has stuck with that, and she's getting amazing results. So got anything you want to add about Dr. Amanda?
Well, other than the fact that her father is one of my all-time favorite AMC members of the past, Dr. Tom Green, very, very special man, has a special connection with the Owen family. Sometime maybe I'll get to share that story of that connection, but he just means a lot to me, always has. And just to have the opportunity to mentor and make a difference in his family and his daughter's life means a lot to me personally. I take it as a big responsibility. And I know that town. I know that practice, believe it or not. She bought an existing practice, been there for, I think, something like 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I think the shag carpet is still was still on the floor when she purchased it. So I'm very much aware of where she is and what she was facing, and that's that's kind of a launching point into what I wanted to talk about, or what you wanted me to cover today. Is just, you said something about her. She stood up. She could, everyone has the ability to have your own attitude. You understand? That's the one choice that we all get. Everybody has a lot of different challenges, comes from a lot of different backgrounds. Everyone has different storms, or they had different parents or teachers and all that. there is one thing that I get to tell my kids. You don't get to choose a lot of things in life, but the one thing you get to choose every day is your attitude. And you can have that attitude that, this self-indulgent attitude of today's society. You can have that, what's the word? I expect it to be given to me attitude. I can have that attitude of, I like this, I don't like that. Or you can just have what she has demonstrated of scared her to death. Didn't say the fear went away, did it?
Nope, not at all.
No, but she chose to have the attitude of, I'm going to do whatever it takes, and whatever is taught to me, I'm going to apply it regardless of the fears and the doubts and the uncertainties and the limiting beliefs and all those things, all those voices that get in your ear. So I'm super proud of her. And really, she's starting to see the fruits of another principle of where your mind was 90 days ago is where your life is today. She's starting to see that. I mean, I don't remember exactly when that was, but I think that was towards the end of the year when she stood up and did that, right?
It was.
And now here we are 120 days later, and you're seeing the fruit starting to show up. Now, is she done? Is the growth finished? No. But we're on that trajectory because of a decision that was made.
All right. The other one that I wanted to shout out very quickly, occasionally we'll have prodigal sons and daughters. We'll have former members come back and engage with us. And somebody that we both respect a lot and love a lot recently did that. His name's Dr. Garth Johnson, and he has a practice in Texas that he purchased. And just over the months, occasionally would reach out to him, and he would to me, and so there was always the relationship, continuing, even if the agreement had expired, which that's ultimately the way we want to set this up. But he returned for an engagement with us, and he had a month where, believe it or not, of the 14 new patients in, 11 of the new ones were paid in full. Just wrote a check for everything from day one. Said, "Yep, that's what I want." And he went over $40,000 collected, and he just recently returned to us. He only attended one summit so far, so I'm excited about that. He's been texting me his numbers and his progress, and of course I've been cheerleading him on. Not that he needs a lot of cheerleading, but that man always had an unlimited amount of potential, and it's good to see him refocused, redirected, updated with what is available now, because there are things that we do now that he wasn't aware of years ago when he took a sabbatical or a break. And I know that this 40,000 where he's reached is just the tip of the iceberg potential. That young man is going to do phenomenal things there, record-breaking things in the state of Texas. So just a quick shout out to Dr. Garth.
Not a surprise at all with Dr. Garth, right? He's always been the whatever it takes guy. He's always had that attitude. And, Dr. Shannon, you and I have been doing this for a minute, to say the least. And what's the a common denominator or a common factor that they all have in common, those that unplug, when the system is the foundation of the practice, right? And they unplug, what's the one, statistically, what do you and I know is going to take place in that practice while they're unplugged? Statistically, it always drops 10 to 20%, and then hovers and stays there, right? Mm-hmm. That's not a secret. With Dr. Garth, we're talking hundreds of examples that we could get the stat book out and look at that, and they all do the same thing. So once the principles are in place, that's why it's called a self-sustaining, stress-free, referral-based practice system. Mm-hmm. That's the self-sustaining part of it, because once the principles are the foundation of it, it'll kind of sustain itself. But it typically backs off 10 to 20%. And that's what Garth had done for so many years. So it's not a surprise, right, that he comes back in, re-engages, gives, now it's the full intent. Now he's realizing all the details that he's dropped off. That's all it is. He's sharpening the tools. Tools are still in the shed. He's just gotten them out. And now all of a sudden he's sharpening the blades and the detail is coming in. And now it's cutting. The tools are sharper. And he's seeing results much, much quicker than maybe somebody that starts from scratch. So it's not a surprise, but I could not be happier for any one person than Garth Johnson, because he's just a man with one of the biggest hearts that I've ever seen. He's such a good guy. I mean, he's one of those cats that you're just drawn to, right? When you meet him and you see him in a room, you're just like, what is that? There's an old song by a Christian singer, Carmen. I don't know if you remember that guy from decades ago, but he had a song called Some of That. Some of that. I want some of that. Whatever that is, I want it. And Garth always has that magnetism that you're drawn to that. And so it's not a surprise, and I'm very, very, very happy to hear about it. Before we move on, Shannon, yesterday we had our internal AMC director call, where we had our once a week conference. And you mentioned somebody on that call that I thought, and I know you're not prepared for this. You probably don't have any notes, so hopefully you can come up with some of the statistics, details. But a long-term member that deserves a shout out, and it was very impressive numbers, was Dr. George Suley. You mentioned him yesterday. I'd like to give that shout out. Now you're the one that was your shout out yesterday on the director call. So do you have that where you could share that with the listeners and give him
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think I can do it justice. So Dr. George and his wife Jennifer they've been in a very long-term practice, and this year they really have worked on their focus and their mindset, not being distracted, and really expecting the very best out of themselves. And the results have been phenomenal. So in the month of March, they had the best March that they've ever had from a patient visit standpoint, going all the way back 3 years. So then they were doing a lot of marketing, and there was a lot of other things going on that kind of propelled, but this is all happening from an internal standpoint. And the numbers, the collection numbers are high because Dr. Suley has amazing value. He has amazing CVA. He is easily in the $40,000 to $50,000 a month range. But here's where the mindset and the mental approach and the high expectations really came to bear. Every patient, as far as I know, every patient that they have presented a comprehensive plan of corrective care, they are 100% accepted since January the 1st. Now we are, this podcast releases in close to the end of April. This podcast is being made close to the beginning of April. So that is a pretty substantial number to share. And I'm super excited about them. Here's the other good thing. The maintenance is increasing, and the next month's pre-scheduled, which is a stat that we keep internally to kind of get a pulse of where the clinic will be in the next 30 days, is also the strongest it's ever been. So it's not a flash in the pan or, a ton of marketing. Not that there's anything wrong with marketing and growing quickly, but it's all internal growth, and it's all born out of their own expectations and maintaining some consistency with their high expectations. And it is phenomenal what's happening in there. And they're not done yet. This is going to be the best year they've ever had by a long margin. Dr. Suley, there's no doubt in my mind that they will have the very best year they've ever had. And it's all coming from that mindset and willing to do whatever needs to be done. And it goes into a couple of principles that you shared on some other podcasts, the where your mind was 90 days ago and what you call the whatever it takes attitude. And, I feel like we owe it to the listeners to really cover that ground with them and explore that fully for their benefit.
When you describe Dr. Suley, you've got to remember that that's a long-term practice that we're talking about. If I remember, Dr. Suley's been around for 15, 20 years, pushing that.
Over 20 years.
One time, he was a mentor at one point inside of AMC. But the key to point out is he's doing that in a manner where it's not stressful, right? A lot of doctors out there hear those kind of numbers or hear 100%, and they wonder what in the world you're doing to get those kind of results. But it's not he's doing it in a manner where it's efficient, it's proficient. So he's not stressed at all. He's enjoyed and he's fulfilling that purpose that drives him. So he's a high quality doctor, but something that you described with him and even Dr. Green, we were talking about earlier, is some common denominators between two different people. So Dr. Suley, the reason I brought that up, he's been in practice or been a member around for decades. And then you got Dr. Green that's just, starting up her career. Yet they have the same thing in common. The same thing is working for both of them. Mm-hmm. They both did what we call made up their mind. Mm-hmm. And that's such a common term these days. It's just, well, I made up my mind to, I'm going to go such and such place for lunch, or I made up my mind that I'm going to get in shape. My New Year's resolution, I'm going to lose weight. But most of the time, it's the first distraction. It's the first detour. Like if I wanted to go to Dockside Seafood for lunch today, okay, I made my mind up. That's what I'm going to have for lunch today. I want some grilled shrimp today here in Jacksonville. Well, that's great, but the first detour that I hit, or the first road construction, or the first school zone, all of a sudden I might change my mind. What Dr. Green and Dr. Suley both have in common is neither, by making up your mind to go for it, to make up your mind, make a commitment, does not remove, in Dr. Green's case, the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, or maybe the lack of value of not sure, are people going to accept me? All those things. What are people going to say about me? What are all the fears and doubts that the listeners are dealing with right now? Well, I'm fearful to do that. I might lose what I already have. All those, the fears, the scarcity mentality. You have to overcome all that, but you have to make that commitment, that winning attitude of doing whatever it takes. And that takes a lot of gumption to get to that point, right? A true, line in the sand moment. It come hell or high water, I'm pressing through. And we've got a lot of examples. I've done shout outs over the years with talking about those particular moments, those doctors, but that's it. First and foremost, folks, the winning attitude. There's two of the most powerful attitudes in life, okay? One is the whatever it takes attitude, making up your mind, whatever it takes. The second attitude that's equally as important is the attitude of gratitude, all right? The attitude of appreciation. But even that, sometimes it's hard to be thankful. So you have to make up your mind that, by God, today, regardless of all the storms, all the things that's happening, I'm still going to be thankful for the opportunities. I'm going to look for things to be thankful for. It still takes a lot of gumption, a lot of commitment, an attitude of whatever it takes. So you can apply this in any area of your life. But what I wanted to unpack today with you, Dr. Shannon, and the listeners, is, well, how do you nurture that attitude? Now, see, I have some people that, I know you and I have one in common. I still remember the day, Doctor, you walked by. I was sitting at the top of the escalator at the Weston Atlanta airport, minding my own business. And you walked by with Dr. Nicole Mathy, and you said, Dr. Nicole, you need to sit there and talk to him. And the next thing I knew, there's Dr. Nicole Mathy, and she had just had it, right? She had had it with some things in her life. And she had come to a point where she goes, you know what? Come hell or high water, I'm ready to draw a line in the sand. I'm done dealing with this stuff. I'm done dealing or being that person or being defeated or whatever that was. Some people, they just come to that moment of exhaustion. They come to that moment of no other options. You don't have to do that to yourself, folks, to nurture the whatever it takes attitude. Some people, it takes that. You got to hit bottom before you'll do it, but you don't have to. How do you nurture a winning attitude? Anybody can make up their mind today to say, I'm going to do the winning attitude. I'm going to just change my attitude with my mentor. So those of you that are aligned members, you don't have to hit rock bottom to change your attitude. That's the one thing I get to teach my kids. My kids are not, I can't give my kids everything, right? I would like to, but I can't do that. And I can't promise life is going to be easy for my kids. So I love my kids more than any listener, and I love them more than you, Shannon, even though I love you, right? But guess what? I still teach my kids one factor. Hey, guys, Daddy can't remove all the obstacles of life. I can't remove all the heartbreak you're going to deal with. But I can tell you this, you get one true choice in life. Things are going to happen to you. Things are going to be said about you. You're going to overcome obstacles. I can't hand it to you. But what I can tell you is you get one true choice in life. You get to choose your attitude. And, I tell my daughter, honey, you can have the attitude of I can or I can't. Whether you say you can or you can't, either way, you're right. Guess what? That's still an attitude. You're choosing the attitude of saying I can or I can't, but either way, I'm right. Well, that's a simple, I can say it that way. And people and the listeners might think, well, that's too simple. But you know what? Truths tend to be simple. The truth tends to be simple, but most of the time, truth is deep. Truth is profound. And I'm talking about a simple truth here today, and that's the whatever it takes attitude, the winning attitude. And I mentioned, well, how do you nurture that? How do you nurture the winning attitude? You do that one day at a time, because you can even, I've said in the past on other episodes, Dr. Shannon, another truth, and I think you've mentioned this before, is where your life is today is where your mind was 90 days ago. Mm-hmm. That's a truth. Most of the time, you can measure your business and see what you're dealing with in your practice or your, I don't know if you're a heating and air repair company. It doesn't matter. Business is business. People are people. And typically you can measure where your business is where your mind was 90 days ago. But here's the interesting thing. How do you fix that? You got to remember that each and every day, a new 90 days is starting. All right. So we can't always, how do I change to the winning attitude? You have to do what the Bible says. Not everybody on this podcast listens or reads the word, but the word I said, it says through the renewing of your mind, How do you renew your mind? You renew your mind daily. All right. So how do you get to that point of where my mind was 90 days ago is where my business is today? That's a nice, easy catchphrase kind of thing. But how do you change it? You change it daily. You have to take action daily to renew the mind. And I know people that know me get tired of me talking about these factors, but you know what? Until somebody recreates or finds me something new that works, I got to keep talking about them. right? But the only way I know how to renew my mind daily is first and foremost is to find some quiet time.
Mm-hmm.
And some people go, well, I don't have an hour to kill to sit and just think. That sometimes it doesn't take an hour. But what listener here is really diligent on finding even 5 minutes, 30 minutes? The longer you can find, the better it is, because typically it takes 10 minutes for your subconscious to kick in. Your conscious mind is working nonstop for that first 10 to 15 minutes when you try to quiet the mind. The body, the flesh, does not want to sit still. So to find quiet time, you really have to sit still for a minimum of 10 minutes just to get the conscious mind to unplug. Then it's something magical starts taking place when you quiet the mind after that 10 minutes. So if I'm quieting that mind, and then after my quiet time, now all of a sudden I'm talking about, I'm hitting that mirror. I was recently watching a webinar with Dr. Lisa Beagley. She talked about some of these same principles. And now Dr. Lisa has her own history. She has her own challenges. She has not had the easy road, right? She didn't get to follow the yellow brick road, skipping down the yellow brick road. She's had quite a journey. How did she do it? She has her affirmations in her shirt pocket, in her jacket pocket. And for 10 years, she has read those affirmations aloud 6 to 7 times throughout her day to remind her of who she is and where she's going. All her affirmations start, and all of your affirmations, listeners, should start with I am. I am an overcomer. I am successful. I am a millionaire. I am valuable. I am worthy. I am whatever. The Bible says, God says, I am the great I am. So there's power in that word, those 2 words of I am. So getting to where you're having quiet time, quiet the mind, and then adding affirmations or mirror time, there's nothing really, really ever going to be more powerful than getting about 3 to 5 inches away from that mirror and staring into the windows of your soul. That'll be some of the most uncomfortable time of your day, is when you get up there, because we don't like what we see, because it's but me that I see there, as the poem says. It's me, and you can't hide from me, and you can't hide from what your eyes are seeing, because you'll ask yourself, who do I see there? Do I see somebody honest? Do I see somebody patient? Do I see somebody loving? Do I see somebody trustworthy? Well, if you don't, guess what? You can change that. You can change that with a whatever it takes attitude of saying, you know what? I'm tired of not being trustworthy. I'm tired of not being a good husband. I'm tired of not being a good father. I'm tired of not being successful. Well, you transform that, what you're seeing, through what you're saying. And that's what an affirmation is. So my affirmation should not be your affirmation, Shannon. And your affirmation, Shannon, should not be any one of the listeners' affirmations. Mm-hmm. An affirmation is personal. Write down, if somebody says, well, I don't know how to write an affirmation. All right, let me teach you in about 15 seconds. Write down all the negative affirmations that you say about yourself. I'm not worthy. I'll never be rich. I'll never have money. All these different negative things that you say to yourself anyway. I'm a loser. I'm just a chiropractor. Chiropractors don't measure up compared to other practitioners. What would people think? What would people say? Write down every negative thing that you can say. And by the way, you won't be able to do that in 5 to 10 minutes. It'll take you a week, because when that negative thought, that negative talk comes up, you got to capture it. Another thing the Bible says to take all thoughts captive. All right. And your thoughts become your words, and your words become your actions become your habits become your destiny, and become your identity. So you take those thoughts captive. So it takes you a while to write personal affirmations, but when you take all those negatives down, then you just switch them, do a 180 and say, I'm the opposite of that. I know I'm dishonest. I know I cheat. Okay. I am honest, and I never cheat, right? That's how you write personal affirmations. They should all be yourselves, and affirmations should change over time. So The winning attitude starts with a whatever it takes. And a lot of times it takes gumption to do that. Sometimes you got to hit rock bottom like people I've worked with, but you don't have to. It's a decision. It's a commitment. And don't get involved with it. Make a commitment. And then realize that it's every day that I have to renew my mind. And guess what? Don't beat yourself up when you fall off the wagon, because you're going to. Everybody's going to fall off. But guess what? Every morning you open those eyes, no matter how achy I feel, my muscles, my traps are all tight, I have a dull headache, it doesn't matter. I still get to choose my attitude of whether I'm going to be, today's going to be the day I think about myself and I'm going to be covered in self-pity, or I don't feel good and I'm uninspired or whatever. All I got to do is flip it and realize, you know what? There's people waiting that need to be served. I am a servant, and then I just change my attitude. I get to choose my attitude every day. Every listener gets to choose their attitude. And guess what? Listeners, I'm going to wrap this up right here. You can have the attitude right now of, I don't like what he's saying. Doesn't change the truth of what I'm saying. Doesn't change the fact that if you applied what I'm saying, it would transform your life for the rest of your living days. And you do it daily, and you're going to fail some days, but you get right back on it. Renew your mind daily, and then you can always live in that production that's 90 days later. See, we gave 2 examples today, real quick. We gave 2 examples, Dr. Green and Dr. Suley. Young practitioner, another practitioner been out there for decades. Both of them used the same thing. They made an attitude, a winning attitude, a whatever it takes attitude, made a commitment, and then 90 days later, they started seeing the fruits of it. And so hopefully everybody got something out of that. Hopefully I had said something that was worthwhile. I don't know. But I'll end it with this. Folks, Dr. Shannon said something about 20 minutes ago that if you didn't write it down, it's worth capturing. High expectations equal high results. Medium expectations equal low results. Low expectations equal no results. Well, where do expectations come from? They come from the renewing of your mind. And if you're not affirming high expectations, if you're not expecting great things, guess what? You ain't going to get great things. So stop complaining about it.
Wow. I was taking notes on my own side over here. That Tom, you got a wealth of knowledge on that subject, and it was great to see that insight and just see you roll with that topic. I remember my first exposure to this whatever it takes attitude that you were talking about. Your dad called it the winning attitude. You call it the whatever it takes attitude, but it's basically, you tell me what I need to do, and it shall be done. And, I'd heard no excuses. I'd heard of, other like cliches and phrases that kind of communicated that. But AMC was my first exposure to the it shall be done attitude. And I don't even know if we give it out anymore, but there used to be a book and a recording called The Go-Getter. It was a modern day fictional parable about a character who had every reason in the world to not get it done, not do it, but had the attitude instilled in him that whatever was assigned, it shall be done. And that changed my life. That was the first time I was ever exposed to that type of attitude. And, carrying that forward into day-to-day life is a challenge. It's not easy, but man, is it worth it, right? So listeners, if you want the winning attitude, and it was the common denominator still is the best predictor of success is the winning attitude or the whatever it takes attitude. If you want that, then just take this into your heart. You tell me what I need to do, and it shall be done, right? And hopefully who you're getting advice from is not recommending anything that is unethical, illegal, or immoral. That's our standard, right? We won't ever recommend anything that violates those 3 rules. And if you need further exposure on it, access that book. It's called The Go-Getter, written by Peter B. Kine, and I suspect it's available through audiobooks. It's a very easy read. It's not very complex at all, but it shares this principle of winning attitude, or whatever it takes attitude. So, Tom, thank you so much for taking us through that. That was really awesome. Glad you did that with us.
Well, like I said, I hope it was helpful. It was off the top of my mind. It was off the cuff. No notes there. So I hope there was something there that was valuable and impactful.
There certainly was. Folks, I hope that you have been encouraged, motivated, and inspired. I know that I have, and we will be back next week, and so will you. We'll see you then. God bless.
Follow our show. You can share it with friends, of course, and we'd love for you to contact us at mailbag@amcfamily.com. In addition, you're always invited to attend or join us at a summit. Of course, registration is required. And we would love for you to check out the loads of free content we provide to social media every single week. Until next time.